We can get started. It's 8:01 p.m. So right on the dot. Good morning or good evening if you're on the other side of the world. To everybody, welcome to all of you joining this plenary session, which is session 4, outreach to Philippine regions. And this is one of the online plenary sessions during this week or month of the 40th anniversary of the Philippine-American Academy of Science and Engineering, and also our annual scientific meeting. My name is Francis De Los Reyes, and I'm a professor of environmental engineering at North Carolina State University. And I'm really pleased to welcome you all to this session. The topic of this session is the theme of the entire conference, and we'll highlight really important work being done by scientists and researchers that directly impact the quality of life of Filipinos and Filipino communities. We've had a good few weeks of exciting scientific talks, and it's not quite over yet, so we still have next week. But I'm really excited to learn about the expertise of our scientists and how they're used to positively impact our country, especially the poor, and maybe inspire us and help us all take a broader view of science and technology and how we can address the plight of the poor and underserved communities. So we really have an exciting, distinguished set of speakers this morning, and I'm looking forward to their talks and the discussion with all of you, and I do expect a vigorous discussion. So we will get started, but some reminders. As you all know, we've muted everybody except for the speakers, so please mute your microphones and keep them muted. If you have questions, you can type them in the chat, in the Zoom chat, and we'll get your question answered. And we have a lot of time, hopefully a lot of time for questions. So we'll get started. So let me share my screen so I can introduce our first speaker. So our first speaker is Father Ben Nebres. Father Ben has a really distinguished career, and so I'm not going to try to capture everything, but I tried to highlight some of the things in this slide. As you all know, he is a national scientist, and he was conferred this in September 2011 by President Benigno Aquino III. And before that, he was elected academician of the National Academy of Science and Technology in 1984. But we probably all best know him as the long-running president of Ateneo de Manila University from 1993 to 2011. And at Ateneo, he started as a math teacher, went through the ranks to become professor, dean of the School of Arts and Sciences, rector, and so on. And still, he is a professor at Ateneo. He was also president of Xavier University in Cagayan de Oro. And he's been involved with a lot of task forces and groups with the Department of Education, with the OST, and also the Commission on Higher Education. I'm not going to list all of his awards. I just wanted to highlight a few here, like the Ordre de Palme Académie, given by the French government, and also the rank of officer in the National Order of Merit of the French Republic, and also very recently an honorary doctorate from the University, Catholic University de Lille. Let's see. So with that, let me start sharing Father Ben's slides. Okay. Sorry, my computer is now acting up. Let's see, let's do that again.
Okay, thank you. So, Francis, do I start?
Yes, go ahead, Father Ben.
So, thank you very much, Francis. And I'd like to begin by thanking Dr. Giselle Concepcion, President of PAASE and PAASE Board, for inviting me to give this lecture, and Francis for hosting this webinar. I really look forward to a very fruitful exchange with my colleagues on the panel and with all the participants in this conference. The title, An Inconvenient Truth, I think will become clear when we get to the end and explain the situation we have of child hunger and malnutrition in our country. So we move to the first major slide. The next. Okay. Since this is a science group, I want to explain that my work with facing child malnutrition really started because of my work in math and science. I taught in the Ateneo High School and did teacher training for public schools and continued this work when I came back from graduate studies. And I started trying to develop math PhD and research programs, but I soon realized that a major bottleneck we have is really the low number and low quality of our high school graduates. There are very, very few comparatively who can do well in mathematics and science in our universities because of the entry levels. And 90% come from the public schools. That's why I started working with the public schools. In 1972, I started working with colleagues in Southeast Asia, and it was very clear how far behind we are in the quality of high school graduates. I was especially struck by Vietnam, which was at war at that time, but still had a lot more excellent mathematics and science graduates than we were having. So that's why I started working with the public schools. Next slide. Can we go? Okay. So we worked for many years with the public schools. We did what most universities do. We did teacher training, materials development, principals training, and so on. But we could not really measure whether we were helping them improve, because at least if you look at the National Achievement Test results, they were not really improving, especially in the high school level. So in the year 2000, I was president then of Ateneo de Manila. We decided to focus on 4 very large and very poor schools in Payatas. And I instructed my team that let's do whatever it takes to help improve those schools. And I worked with the principals of those schools. They did improve. But we soon learned that a major problem was health and hunger. Sabi ng mga teachers, gutom sila. A story we used to tell at that time is a boy in Parañaque. Hinimatay siya, he fainted, and then when he revived, sabi niya, Huwebes pala. And the teacher says, what even Huwebes pala? The family is so poor, they take turns not eating. Huwebes, hindi siya kumakain. And we found out in Payatas, the children had a choice. They could either go to school and not eat, or they could go and scavenge in the garbage dumps and have something to eat. In rural areas like in Cabiao, pwede silang mangkapas sa bukid and kakain sila, or they go to school and don't eat. So hunger is a real problem. We go on. Next slide. Sorry. Okay, so we started in the year 2000. We partnered with Jollibee Foundation's Busog Lusog Talino. It's a program that Jollibee has where they provide lunch for the 40 of the poorest children in selected public schools. So we work with them in the public schools that we were working with at the time, about a dozen of them. Their menus were developed by FNRI and vegetable-based with protein sources. And people were always surprised when we told them the cost per meal was only 11 pesos and 50 centavos. But amazingly, this one additional meal was enough to bring them all the risk to health. So we started doing that in several schools. Next. We move to the next slide. And then we started to scale up. In 2008, the principal of Bagong Silangan Elementary School, one of the 4 poor schools we worked with, asked us, sabi niya, we have 8,000 pupils and half of them are hungry most of the time. Could you provide lunch for them? Sabi namin, we cannot do that. We can only do it, we can do 400. because we had to give our own funds. So we started doing 400 in Bagong Silangan Elementary School. And then Dr. Bengson from the Ateneo Professional Schools found that out. And so he said in 2010 that the Ateneo Professional Schools, 4 of them, would contribute 1 million pesos each. And they would help us provide lunch for 4,000 school children in 4 public elementary schools along Commonwealth Avenue. Around 2011, Mayor Sarvin Gatchalian saw a kitchen and sabi niya, I've always wanted to provide lunch for my school children, but I did not know how. And so that's our biggest kitchen. Provides lunch for about 16,000 to 18,000 children every school day, half in the daycare centers and half in the elementary school. So now I'd like to show you some images of what Central Kitchen. So it's a technology that's developed by Ateneo Center for Educational Development. The very first was in Manuel Luis Quezon Elementary School in Quezon City. Next slide. So if you enter any of our kitchens, you will see a whiteboard. On the left, you'll see the menu for the day. It's always vegetable-based with some protein sources. To the right here, you see the 4 elementary schools, ML, UPS, and so on. And then the assignment by day of Nanay volunteers. So the volunteer assignments are there. So all our kitchens have that system. It's based very much on volunteerism and support of the community. Okay. Next slide. Here you see the parent volunteers, mostly women, mostly nanays. May tatay din, pero ilan lang sila. You see the malunggay preparation area. So to Dr. Giselle, we always have malunggay in every meal. So here they are stripping the malunggay for the meals. You'll see this in every kitchen that we have. Next. You see, it's one of the very first children that we provided meals for. Praying, they pray before meals. We have hand washing places, so they all wash their hands and before eating, and they pray before eating. Okay. Next slide. I want to cite Valenzuela City. Senator Sherwin, then mayor, started. It was taken over by his brother, Mayor Rex, and he has really developed it. I cite it because it's become the model that we have, and any new LGU that wants to implement, we bring them to Valenzuela so they can learn. So it's a template of cooperation between local government, school officials, parents, and our private university or Gawad Kalinga, a private group that helps manage it. The city government, led by the mayor, at that time Valenzuela provided all the funding. Now, a lot of the funding comes from the national government. They built a central kitchen. And as you know, when you use government funds, you always have to worry about procurement systems and COA. So they figured out the whole system for procurement and for making sure that they met auditing requirements and provided the transportation to the different schools. Next slide. So Ateneo provided the management. We have an Ateneo manager there. He has to get up at 2 a.m. every day because they started cooking at 3 a.m. Community volunteers do the cooking and the cleaning. And in the different schools, the principals, the teachers, and the parents handle food distribution. Next slide. Oops. Oh, here. So you see the Valenzuela Kitchen volunteers. It's a huge place. They start as early as 3 a.m. It's quite an operation. You should visit. I invite you to visit. You as a USA, visit it next time you come to the Philippines. Next slide. Francis, the next. This is the transport system. They have these minivans with the sign Chikiting Food Patrol, quite cute. And the traffic people in Valenzuela move them on so that hindi mapanis yung pagkain. And you see here the picture of Vice Mayor Lorena, Natividad, Sherwin Gatchalian, Grace Poe, and Rex Gatchalian. We thank them because they've been supporting the program. So that was Ateneo starting it. And then I also am on the board of Gawad Kalinga. In 2014, after Typhoon Yolanda, GK, I went with GK to Leyte, and we saw that hunger was really very serious, especially among the children. So Gawad Kalinga established what's called Kusina ng Kalinga. We adopted the technology developed by Ateneo Blue Plate, and we started providing, we provided kitchens in Alang-Alang near Tacloban, and then in Ormoc and Cananga. And then in 2015, after the Sub-44 tragedy, we started school feeding in Maguindanao. First, actually, in the Mama Sapano, Radyo Buayan area, and then in Parang, and now in several other cities of several towns of Maguindanao. In 2017, as soon as we could do it at the end of Ramadan, we put up a Gawad Kalinga kitchen in Sagyaran, which is the main evacuation center for the evacuees of the siege of Marawi. And now I'll show you some images. Francis, next slide. So that's me. I went in March 2015. I went to Mama Sapano area. This is an evacuation center for about 2,000 or 3,000 people. I was wearing a GK yellow shirt because it was important to be identified. There were still encounters going on around the place, and we had to be quite careful. So here they are, to explain to them what we were going to do. Next slide. Francis, children. These are the children of Mama Sapano area evacuees eating their meals. And I want to show you a lot of pictures of children because that's really what it is for. It is really for our children. And no matter how difficult, or for our Gawad Kalinga teams, no matter how dangerous, they try to go because we have to take care of the children. Next slide. Francis. So this is now Marawi. So this is our kitchen in the evacuation area, Sagyaran, the town nearest Marawi. We actually started a month after the war started, right at the end of Ramadan. So that's our kitchen there, and our volunteers. Our volunteers are actually evacuees, Maranao evacuees, except for the leaders. And then you see the children there, evacuee children from Marawi. Next slide. Francis. So next. Oh. So a story I often tell is actually when we went to that kitchen, we could not start immediately. We found out that that kitchen was so near ground zero that the floor would shake with the bombing, and we could really see the smoke and everything. And we were, Gawad Kalinga leaders were actually nervous and not sure whether we should continue. But Gabi Tombok, who heads this one, and you'll meet her in a video that I'll show later, said something that we tell and retell. She sabi niya, we can see and hear the bombs, but we can also see and hear the children. I think we should listen to the children. And that's really the motto that we have had in all these difficult areas. We have to listen to the children. So here are the teachers and the volunteers, and here are the children. Next slide. Francis. So here's our kitchen. We now have our kitchen in Camp Bago Amay Pakpak Elementary School inside Marawi. And in 2018-2019 school year, we provided meals for 5,000 children in about 20 schools. So here is the preparation area. It's exactly the same as the very first kitchen that was developed. Continue. Francis. We engaged a lot more LGUs. We ran what we call End Hunger Summits, and this spread. And finally, the national government began to come in with funding. In 2014, the national government provided funds for malnourished school children of about 1 billion pesos. In 2018, if I am correct, it went up as high as 5 billion pesos for malnourished children in elementary schools and 3 billion for children in daycare centers. In June 2018, finally a law was passed due to a lot of the work of Senators Grace Poe, Serving Gatchalian, Chis Escudero, Bamakino, and others. Mandating school feeding for all daycare pupils and malnourished children as determined by BMI in public elementary schools. We're very happy about that. Next slide. So I want to cite that the technology that was developed by Ateneo and Kalinga is now being carried out by mayors themselves. They now take the leaders. And I think that's really our hope that this will spread across the country. Mayor Rex Casalian of Valenzuela City really pays personal attention and the model we use. Governor Uy of Compostela Valley is our hero for governors. He has put up central kitchens in all the towns of Compostela Valley. In Nueva Ecija, it's a model for us of partnership between DepEd division, because it was led by the division superintendent and assistant division superintendent. I work with Gawad Kalinga and mayors in several towns, and GK, Ateneo, and Jollibee do the training of volunteers and managers. Next. However, so we have made progress on daycare and elementary. However, there is a new frontier that we still have to conquer, the so-called first 1,000 days. In other words, malnutrition from pregnancy up to the baby is 2 years old. Daycare at 3 years old is a bit too late. And the statistics that we have are very painful. In 2018, the statistics said that 33% of Filipino children 0 to 5 are stunted, and 1-year-olds are 36.6%. So as I said, school feeding in daycare and elementary is too late. We have to reach pregnant mothers and babies among the poor. There are several models we've been studying. Iriga City has a technology where they prepare their own cerelac. Quezon Province, the governor has made this his flagship, and so it's really worked very hard on it. But maybe the most interesting is the one developed by Malabon City called Karinderia para sa Kalusugan ni Chikiting, KKC. We'll show you a picture. Next slide, Francis. So I had a meeting with, in the center, you have Mayor Lenlen Oreta and Mrs. Melissa Oreta. My team is in front. We visited them. To his right is the city health officer and the barangay nutrition workers. And to their left are 2 Karinderia providers. So what they have done is they have accredited about 30 to 50 Karinderias across the city. And they put in a lot of protocols. The Karinderias prepare the same meals. There is a menu for every day. And each Karinderia is assigned about 30 or so families, malapit lang, so they can provide for all of them. It's a very impressive model, and they've definitely cut down malnutrition in the first 1,000 days. We were hoping to spread this, but then the pandemic came, and so it is delayed. But we do hope that we can spread their model, especially in the cities. So finally, the pandemic. What do we do? I said that we want to talk about this as a problem of an inconvenient truth, because if you read Shell Habitus' problem, August 4, he points out that this problem of stunting has been going on for many, many years. In 1989, 44.5% were stunted, and the lowest over the last 50 years has been just 30%. So for the scientific community, I'd like to present this challenge to us. In our last meeting of the National Academy, we said we should study why we rank so low in PISA. I invite us to think, to understand whether this is connected to the brain and body stunting in 1/3 to 1/2 of our children in their early years due to hunger and malnutrition. And we should really consider that 1/3 to 1/2 of our children never had a chance, and that we have to tackle this problem if we want to improve education and science in our country. Some final slides about the pandemic. Francis. So what are we doing in this pandemic since the children are not in school? There are 3 models. First is Ateneo is implementing a so-called food augmentation program. We provide vegetable food packs once a week, just costing 90 pesos to families of beneficiaries. We have done this in 2 Quezon City public schools for about 500 beneficiaries, and it has worked very well. We're trying to get approval now from the DepEd to roll this out in more places. Okay, the next is the Malabon model, already cited. So this is the next model, in other words, to accredit Karinderias. And the last prize is to show you a video, which is that Gawad Kalinga is now providing community kitchens per community so that malapit lang and they can provide cooked meals for the children. Right? Thank you. Francis, you'll play the video. Francis, no, it's okay. You'll play the video. Sorry. Do you have a problem? Sorry.
Sorry, just a second.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if it was playing. Were people seeing the video?
Okay.
No. Okay.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
do that again.
No video.
Okay. So. Okay. We can do this now.
Okay. Thank you.
Kaya kanang ano naaguman.
No image.
Anak. Nang ano, kami og ganikanan og kira pero anak kaya nga di siya taon kita. Ito mo. Tsaka pa, wala kami karoon, magpuyog-puyog na lang ikon asa may makapamagon. Karoon na yung taon may.
Mataling na problema, hindi lamang nila masabi sa guro. Malaman mo lamang kung magreklamo na sila. Kung sumakit ang tiyan nila, may malaman na wala pala silang kain na pumunta dito sa eskwelahan.
So we put people hungry on a regular basis. We cannot end poverty without confronting hunger. The poor endure hunger on a regular basis, but it's most hunger is most cruel to the young. In 2014, Gawad Kalinga launched Kusina Kalinga as a response and as a platform to end hunger among children. Kusina is possible by the collaborative efforts of individuals and institutions with no child goes under their watch. Hungry is a big monster, but bayanihan is a much, much bigger point. That's why Kalinga is built on the conviction that together we can end hunger. Past years, GK worked hand in hand with the Department of Education and various organizations. Together, we have established a vast network of 168 nationwide that can prepare up to 100,000 meals every day. This model is simple. Kitchen is established in a school or community that has access to basic ingredients and supplies, unit, the regular workforce, and depth-ed and private donors provide the meals. But all of this, who wake up, fair and youth outcomes, they're caring and sharing the ingredient of food.
Yung mga ingredients po na galing sa local. So, dito sa Sambuan, dito rin kami bibili ng karne, gas, mga gulay na gagamitin natin.
Sa akong 7 ka anak, 5 anak kadawa sa feeding program. Ako jud kay natabang ang kuan gawan Kalinga kusina. Nang excited na kay sila nga mo eskwela. Malipayon ko nga nakatabang ni Pulong Kirk Nebres. Sansibusan, nakatabang ko sa mga kabataan. Sama na ko nga ginikanan naghan ng dili ra kay ako ray kabut naghan mga
in every disaster since 2000, beginning with Super Typhoon Yolanda and Number 2, the eruptions of Mayon and Taal volcanoes, the earthquake in Macau, and in Marawi.
Siyempre, na-adjust pa sila. Yung iba, di pa nakalimutan yung panahon na gera dito sa Marawi. Yung mga ibang bata na kung nagkakaroon.
Nag-umpisa po ang kusina ng Kalinga dito sa Marawi in partnership with the before. Actually, a month after yun ng Marawi stage. Pakain kami ng 1,000 bata. And then, January of 2000, na-launch na din po yung kitchen natin dito na mismo sa
Time kasi na mangyari dito sa school namin na may pagkain na din. Ang bata, masaya. Araw-araw pumunta sila sa school kasi alam nila na may feeding na darating.
Yung school, ang learners ko lang dito ay 268. Ngayon, may learners na 372. Isang dahilan ay ito, pinipura sa kusina ng Kalinga.
yung mga schools kasi na hinahatidan nila ng outside na siya mismo ng center ng Marawi. Sa paghahatid nila, inaabot sa 2 to 3 hours.
Ako grade 1 lang, pagyo lang. Kulang po. Sila marami pang mating pa sa kanila na pag-aral. Natin daw para sa hindi nila maranasan yung buhay ko.
Nakita ko sa mga staff na hindi sila yung professional or whatsoever, pero pwede tumulong.
As proseso feeling sa mga kasi yung ito ng mga bata, nakita ko talaga na they are excited bago sila ng pagkain.
Hunger has had 10% for the past 10 years, which affects roughly around 2.1 million families annually. But in 2020, this number has gone up to 4.2 million families due to text became bigger and its grip became we are thankful to bring our bayanihan and tourism to a whole new level. Remember, we must work together to make sure that no one gets left behind in this pandemic. Millions of kids will be studying from their homes and communities this year. In these unprecedented and uncertain times, we need to make sure that they get all the help we can get. That is why for this year, Kusina Kalinga will go to where the kids are. Gawad Kalinga will establish kitchens in the communities to provide at least one meal a day kids age 1 to 12 years old for at least 6 days. Help bring food to those who need it the most in this time of pandemic. Join us in our battle against hunger and poverty. We should be able to tell ourselves that no child went hungry under our roof. hunger ends where care begins.
So thank you very much. Thank you, Francis, and thank you, Dr. Rista. That's it.
Thank you, Father. And we will have a lot of time for questions for Father Ben after the panel. I think there are questions that are showing up on the chat right now. Maybe we could be asked. Let's see. There are some comments. So one is from Leia Tolosa. So Father Ben, maybe I'll ask you one question. So this is the comment from Leia Tolosa. I realize GK is a Catholic organization, but can family planning be part of the program? Some families have too many children that arguably leads to poverty and hunger, and it is passed on from generation to generation. The kitchens are a great idea, and I applaud GK for that, but on a certain level, they are a stopgap to the problem. Do you want to comment to that one, Father?
Yes, of course, it's a stopgap, but you cannot wait till you absorb the poverty problem. These children are growing every day, and you cannot wait. You have it's an emergency. You have to save these children, because if you don't, they will become part of the poverty problem. You have 30% of your population that are non-productive. They cannot be employed. So you cannot say we'll solve poverty and then hunger will disappear, because you never will, because these hungry and malnourished children will become your non-productive citizens in the future. And so your economy will never improve. So it has to be tackled now. In other words, malnutrition cannot wait till we solve other problems.
Okay, thank you, Father. And there's more questions, but we'll probably wait until the Q&A for the whole panel. Thank you, Father, for your talk and the video. It's really eye-opening. Okay,